The story begins on the day Charles's wife, Sarah, was leaving for London for work. Charles goes to drop her off at the taxi, and Sarah records that fun moment on her phone before leaving. Charles is a very sharp CIA agent. When his wife isn't with him, he spends most of his time at the office. After dropping Sarah off, Charles drives straight to his office. The security there was so tight that not even a bird could get inside. There he meets his friend named the Bear. Bear is a field agent. He was asking Charles for technical help because Charles had saved his life by solving a problem for him last time. Charles also has a secret conversation going on with an unknown person whom he calls Inquiline. For the past 5 years, Charles had been guessing where this person was operating from. Inquiline gives Charles some files that contained his agency's hidden secrets. After talking, when Charles looks at the data sent by Inquiline, he understands that these files are very special and confidential. Just then his wife calls him, wanting to talk, but Charles refuses, saying he's very busy. The poor guy didn't even know that the person he was refusing to talk to, he might never be able to talk to her again. While reading some secret files received from Inquiline, Charles finds out that Director Frank Moore and Deputy Caleb had ordered some unauthorized drone attacks in the Middle East and had presented them as suicide bombings. This discovery shocked him deeply. Stepping outside, Charles tells his old friend Carlos about this. Carlos advises him, "Don't mess with it, brother." That night when Charles reaches home and tries to talk to Sarah, there's no answer. He thinks Sarah might be busy in a meeting, so he sends her a voicemail. But his world comes crashing down when Charles reaches the office the next morning and sees Frank waiting for him right there. Frank takes him to Director O'Brien's office, where he's told that Sarah has died in a terrorist attack in London. At first, Charles doesn't believe them at all, but when Frank shows him the CCTV footage where some armed men are seen forcibly taking Sarah, Charles is completely broken inside. After this, Charles brings Sarah's belongings and her body from the airport. That night when he opens Sarah's bag, he finds a puzzle for himself that Sarah was going to give him as a gift. Seeing this, Charles cries a lot. The next day, Charles goes to the office and demands action against Sarah's killers from Frank and Caleb, but both of them brush him off, saying that this matter can't be resolved his way. After this, Charles starts investigating the attack himself and finds out the names of 4 terrorists: Miska Blaz, Alish, Great Chin Frank, and Horst Schiller, with Horst being the one who killed his wife. Further surveillance footage also reveals that Sarah tried to save a woman and was taken hostage in her place. When Charles tells all this to Frank and Caleb, he learns that both of them already knew everything about those 4 terrorists. Caleb explains that he was just comparing Charles's information with his own, and Frank tells him to meet Dr. Garrison, who is a counselor for their agency's employees. After reaching Garrison, Charles first avoids talking, but after a while his heart feels heavy, and he openly shares everything, all that he's feeling after Sarah's death. Dr. Garrison explains that she can only help, but ultimately he's the only one who can truly heal himself. After meeting the doctor, Charles hides a tiny chip in his ID card so he can place it in Frank's office and listen to all their conversations. Then he goes to his office, where he prints out all the evidence and saves it on a device, which showed Frank and Caleb ordering illegal drone strikes in the Middle East. After that, he cleverly leaves and goes to a bar, where he hides all that data in a CD of a CD machine. The next day, when Charles arrives at Frank's office and presents all the evidence that clearly goes against Frank and Caleb, he also says that he needs field agent training so he can eliminate those 4 terrorists with his own hands. Hearing this, Frank and Caleb laugh, mocking him that this isn't a job for someone like him. This job requires courage. At this, Charles directly threatens them that if they don't help him, he will expose all their dirty deeds to the world, even if it means going to jail. He tells them that he has a dead man's switch that will send all the documents to news channels if he doesn't confirm it every 5 hours. Hearing this, both are forced to agree to Charles's terms, and they send him to meet Colonel Robert Henderson so Henderson can train him to be a professional killer. But secretly, both of them are also planning to have Charles killed. Henderson takes Charles to a training camp where some people are practicing shooting. When Charles tries to shoot a gun for the first time, not a single bullet hits the target. Seeing this, Henderson tells everyone else to stop firing and asks Charles to go closer to the target and shoot, but Charles still can't aim properly. However, when it comes to making bombs, Charles amazes everyone with his skills. After this, Henderson gives him a fake ID card and a new passport. Meanwhile, Caleb, along with other officers, searches Charles's house and all the places Charles had visited. Finally, they reach the place where Charles had hidden the evidence in a CD. That night when Charles is in his room, Henderson arrives and sees the pictures of the 4 terrorists kept near Charles. Henderson asks Charles that if he kills one, the others will know he's coming, so how will he kill all 4 without making noise? Charles replies that this is what Henderson needs to teach him. At this, Henderson gives him his gun and says, "Shoot me." But Charles can't pull the trigger. Then Henderson explains to him that he's not a killer, and just as he codes, killing is not his job. Charles says, "When the time comes, I will definitely shoot." To this, Henderson just leaves, saying, "When the time comes, you won't even know where the trigger is." During this, Frank is having the CD decoded by Ali Park. Ali says it might take more than 5 hours to fully decode it. On the other hand, Charles is clearly hearing all this from the training camp. As soon as Frank and Caleb realize that Charles had lied about the dead man's switch, they immediately order Henderson to kill Charles. But as soon as Henderson enters Charles's room, he finds that Charles has already fled. When Henderson tells Frank all this, Frank flares up in anger, and as he carefully looks at the files given by Charles, he also finds the hidden microphone in them. On the other hand, Charles also finds out about this, and without wasting time, he immediately catches a flight to Paris to escape from there. On the flight, Charles remembers old good times spent with Sarah. As soon as Charles reaches Paris and scans his passport, Frank and Caleb also get information about him being in Paris at that very moment. In Paris, Charles rents an apartment nearby where Great Chin used to visit often. Great Chin was the woman who was involved in that attack with those 4 terrorists. Charles finds her and reaches her apartment, and when he gets a chance, he watches a YouTube video to unlock her door and goes inside. Inside the flat, he finds information about a clinic where Great Chin gets treatment for her allergies. Charles looks at her schedule and takes a photo so it can be useful later. He also finds a gun in a drawer nearby and puts it in his pocket. Just then, he sees on his phone that Great Chin is coming back, and he quickly leaves the flat before she arrives. As he steps outside, he has a good chance to shoot Great Chin, but he can't pull the trigger. Panicked, he runs from there and reaches his apartment where he starts seeing his wife. The next day, Charles goes to a flower shop where he buys beautiful sunflowers because Great Chin was allergic to them. After this, he goes to the same clinic disguised as a doctor and locks Great Chin's room from inside. Then, using an oxygen tube, Charles puts flower powder into her room, which makes Great Chin choke. When Charles asks her for Schiller's address, Great Chin clearly refuses to say anything and starts to faint there. Seeing all this, Charles gets scared and decides to open the door to her room. As the door opens, Great Chin attacks Charles and runs away from there. As she exits the clinic, a car hits Great Chin, killing her instantly on the spot. Charles gets severely scared seeing all this and picks up Great Chin's phone and runs away quickly. Upon reaching the apartment, Charles quickly packs his bag and directly boards a bus heading for France. That night when he goes to a club, he spots Henderson there. Seeing him, Charles gets severely scared and somehow uses the crowd to get out of that bar and enters another bar to save himself. But Henderson chases him and reaches there too. Panicked, Charles goes into the bar's toilet and looks for a way out, but there's no way to escape from there. Out of helplessness, he has to come out and face Henderson. When Charles asks Henderson how he found him, Henderson tells him that Great Chin's phone was traced, giving away his location. He advises Charles to stop, but before he can do anything, Charles has already set a bomb in the bathroom. As the explosion happens, Charles quietly escapes amidst the smoke and chaos. After spending the night on the streets of France, Charles contacts Inquiline and asks for help. Then he boards a large cargo plane and lands in Istanbul, and following the instructions given in Inquiline's voicemail, he reaches a restaurant. At first, he thinks Inquiline is a man, but after a short while, his doubt is cleared. Upon leaving the restaurant, Inquiline tells him her real name is Davis and asks him to keep his belongings in a bag. After this, she sends him for some shopping and gives him a car parking location. After getting his things, Charles gets into her car and both head towards Davis's house. On the way, Davis reveals that she is the wife of a deceased CIA KGB officer and that he taught her all about understanding data and encrypting files. Since his death, Davis has been secretly helping the CIA so that she can ask for help if she ever needs it. While talking about all this, both reach Davis's hideout. Inside, Charles and Davis together find some information about Blazek, which reveals that he loves to live a luxurious life and that he's going to a hotel with his girlfriend today. Meanwhile, Director O'Brien questions Frank about this whole affair and tries to get his opinion, but Frank starts beating around the bush. O'Brien understands his trick and leaves, getting into her car, where her agent shows her a photo of Henderson and tells her he's currently in Madrid. When O'Brien asks who ordered him there, the agent clearly names Frank. Hearing this, O'Brien immediately orders another agent to be sent to Madrid. On the other hand, Charles and Davis hack the hotel's cameras, where they find out that Blazek has booked the entire swimming pool just for himself. Knowing this, Charles prepares to go to that place and tells Davis to keep an eye on Henderson. After a few days of planning, Charles plans to go inside the hotel and make the pool collapse. Meanwhile, seeing Charles going to the same hotel repeatedly, Henderson also starts to suspect something but can't figure out what Charles is up to. As Charles reaches the hotel, the poor guy doesn't even know that Henderson is already there waiting for him. While keeping an eye on Blazek, Charles suspects a man, and as soon as he tells Davis this, they confirm that Henderson is also in the same hotel and the man stalking Charles is also a CIA agent. Davis immediately tells him to return, but Charles insists on continuing his plan. When Blazek is swimming in the pool, Charles goes to him and asks about Horst Schiller. To this, Blazek tries to lie to him. Then Charles directly tells him that he has fitted a device in the pool he's swimming in that will shatter the entire glass in a short while. Knowing all this, Blazek gets scared and says that Schiller has now disappeared, and he quickly tries to get out of the pool. Just then, Charles turns on the device, which causes cracks to appear in the pool's glass, and in a few seconds, with a loud sound, the entire glass breaks. And because of this, Blazek falls straight down 16 floors and dies on the spot. Just then, Davis tells Charles that Henderson is heading his way, and Charles immediately tries to escape from the hotel. Before Henderson could catch him, an operative of O'Brien attacks him, and a fierce fight breaks out between the two, which Charles is watching from outside. As Henderson starts to overpower the operative cleverly pulls out his gun and shoots him. But Henderson also retaliates, snatches his gun, and takes his life. Seeing Henderson's condition, Charles feels heartbroken and he wants to help him. But Davis immediately tells him to leave from there. And reluctantly, Charles has to leave Henderson in that condition and run away. On the other hand, O'Brien calls Frank to her office and asks about Charles. Frank tries to brush her off by lying and leaves, but O'Brien already has an idea of the truth. Meanwhile, Caleb and his team figure out that Charles was talking to someone at the time of Blazek's death, which also gives the team information about Davis. Caleb immediately orders his team to call the Russian chief in Istanbul. That night when Charles is resting, Davis comes to him and asks if she can stay with him that night. Charles agrees and lets her sleep with him. In the middle of the night, as soon as Davis hears the sound of her chickens outside, she immediately understands that attackers have reached her house. She immediately takes Charles out through a secret passage and both start fleeing in their car. But the shooters don't give up their chase and start firing indiscriminately from a boat. In this gunfire, Charles survives, but Davis is not so lucky. Charles quickly gets into the driving seat and somehow escapes amidst the rain of bullets. Reaching a safe place, he gives a final kiss on the forehead of the deceased Davis and then quietly leaves without saying anything. After this, Charles poses as a weapons dealer and messages Alish, asking him to come to Romania. Upon reaching Romania, Charles sends him the location of a warehouse. To deceive the CIA there, Charles scans his face and maps his face onto random people's faces in cameras of different countries around the world. This prevents the CIA from tracking his location. As Alish reaches the warehouse, Charles tricks him into opening a box. As soon as the box opens, a bomb activates which can now blow Ali's to pieces with the slightest movement. When Charles asks Alish about Schiller, Alish spills everything out of fear. He says that Schiller has left Europe and is now hiding on a boat in the sea. He also gives Charles the names of some of Schiller's associates. Despite getting all this information, Charles does not deactivate the bomb, causing Alish to die in the explosion. On the other hand, the CIA continues its search, and finally realizes that Charles had fooled them badly by hacking all the CCTV systems. After all this, Charles reaches Promos by boat. There, he searches for Schiller's associates mentioned by Alish and takes their pictures before going to a restaurant. There, he bumps into Bear, who has been keeping an eye on his every move. Bear offers to help Charles get out of there so the CIA can't catch him, but Charles flatly refuses to abandon his mission. The next day, as Charles is keeping an eye on Schiller's associates, someone comes from behind and knocks him unconscious. The same people kidnap him and take him to a ship, where he finally meets Schiller face to face. Schiller explains in his defense that they had no intention of killing Sarah, but the police had blocked their only way, and they had to show how serious they were. Schiller also says that just as Charles killed Blazek and Alish, and Great Chin's death was also part of his planning, Sarah's death was also a compulsion for him. According to him, what Charles did, he did too. The only difference is the perspective. Then Schiller takes a gun from his associate and gives it to Charles, saying that if he wants, he can shoot him right there. Perhaps that's why he came to him. At first, it seems like Charles will shoot Schiller, but he doesn't. Instead, he calmly reveals his real plan. His goal was to keep Schiller talking long enough for the boat to reach Finland's waters, and as soon as the boat crosses the international border, agents surround the ship from all sides. After this, O'Brien announces in a press conference that all the evidence related to Frank and Caleb's secret drone strikes is now out in the world, and both have been arrested. She also confirms that the person who brought all this to light is alive and is now working with the agency. Upon returning home, Charles meets Henderson, who is still alive. Henderson admits that he underestimated Charles's capabilities. To this, Charles says that whatever he has learned is thanks to Henderson, but Henderson smiles and says that it's not because of him, but Charles's own courage and decision-making power. Then Charles goes to Sarah's grave, where he places her favorite flowers and remembers her. In the final scene, we see that Charles has repaired the broken plane that Sarah gifted him, and now he takes it out to fly it in the open sky.